Vicky in Oxfordshire, who asks this: will you protect women's right to single-sex spaces from any and all males, regardless of if they hold a GRC, a gender recognition certificate? Rishi Sunak?
Yeah, yes, unequivocally. And we will do that by changing the law so that the Equalities Act recognises that sex means biological sex, and that will allow us to deliver on what Vicky wants, which is to protect female-only spaces, female-only services. It's crystal clear for you there is a choice on that question at this election, because Keir Starmer is not matched my pledge to reform the Equalities Act to pass new law. That is the only way to deliver on what Vicky says. And the reason he won't do that, I don't know, but he can explain, is because he's not sure, like I am, that when it comes to these matters, sex means biological sex, and that's how you protect female-only spaces and services.
Keir Starmer?
Yes is the answer to the question. It's very important that we protect women's spaces. I saw this firsthand when I was Chief Prosecutor back in 2008 to 2013. I was working with groups who were supportive of women who'd been subjected to domestic violence and sexual violence, and saw for myself just how important it is to have those women's spaces. Same in hospitals and in sport. So yes to that answer. But what I will also say is that I do recognise that there are a small number of people who are born into a gender that they don't identify with, and I will treat them, as I treat all human beings, with dignity and respect. And I'll tell you for why. I'll tell you for why. Because if you don't, you end up with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom standing in Parliament making an anti-trans joke in front of the mother of a murdered trans teenager. I will never, ever allow myself to be put into that position.
Sunak,
okay.
would you like to respond to that?
That's not what I did. I was pointing out that you've changed your mind on this question multiple times. But to answer Vicky's question, you can't deliver on what Vicky wants. So everyone who does want female spaces protected has to be prepared to change the laws that the Equalities Act recognises that sex means biological sex. It's pretty straightforward. Now, Keir Starmer says that he believes in that, but he won't change the law to do it. So he's not being straight with you again.
Well,
right? Saying one thing and doing another. You won't change the law to recognise that sex means biological sex, so you cannot say to Vicky and everyone else who cares about this issue that you will actually ensure that their spaces are protected.
If he'd been in as many support centres that I've been in for those that have survived sexual violence and domestic violence, he would know very well it is possible to do it. It is being done. I've supported it being done when I was Chief Prosecutor. I've always believed in that principle of women's spaces. That's going back to 2008, way before this latest iteration of the debate, because I could recognise for myself just how important it was to have that space, women-only space, biological women-only space, particularly in that area, but also in other areas.
How do you ensure it? Just a second. Yeah. I mean, Rishi Sunak, how do you ensure it without changing the Equalities Act?
It's provided for under the Equality Act. It is actually spelt out as one of the examples given in the Act. It always has been. And fabricating a difference here in a situation where actually we should be trying to find common ground and work together. Well, I'm proud of the record of my party on women's rights. We've done amazing things in terms of equality under Labour governments, made a massive difference to millions of lives. There's much more work to do on women's equality going forward. But the only way I think we can make that progress is if we change the way that we do politics, stop this business of always trying to divide everybody, and actually use the opportunity of leadership, which is what I would do, to say the job of the leader of the country is to bring people together. These are difficult discussions, different opinions, of course, but the role of the leader of the country is to bring that together so that the country itself is less divided.
Well,
one of the issues for me is with sadness, is the fact that over the last 14 years, there's been this tendency on almost every issue to try to find the points of difference and division, rather than doing what we're actually really good at as a country, which is bringing people together.
Before we move on.
This is about the courage of your convictions and principles. Right? I believe when it comes to these matters, sex means biological sex. Of course we should have compassion and tolerance for people who are going through questioning that. But fundamentally, when it comes to women's safety, women's only spaces, sex means biological sex for me. That is the only way to make sure you can deliver the protections that Vicky wants. And on this question, Keir Starmer, when one of his own female MPs made that point a while ago, he said that she was wrong. She was hounded, right? He said she was wrong. Now, he's now changed his mind on that question, that it goes back to trust, it goes back to having the courage of your convictions. I get that not all of you will agree with my position, right? But I'm being clear with you. Sex means biological sex. You have to change the Equalities Act to deliver the security of women's spaces and women's services. That's what I believe the right thing for our country is.
Can you respond
and
to
if you
that
don't
point,
agree
which
with that, that's fine,
relates
but that's
to
what I will do.
one of your MPs, Rosie Duffield?
The Prime Minister knows perfectly well that this is all set out in the Equalities Act already. The specific instance of safe space, it's set out. Read the legislation. Look at the notes under the legislation. It's been there for years. Don't just use this as a political football to try to divide people across the country.
Thank you.